The Crusader Starlifter, this is a new ship, new role, and for me and the team, a new manufacturer. This is the transporter, sort of military transporter ship basically. It's got quite a large cargo capacity, so it can hold up to 2 tumble tanks. So that's some hefty firepower that you can store inside it. And then we've got the 3 variants, depending on which, what role you want to play and what piece of the game you want to take on. So the base variant, this is more like your sort of commercial hauler. It comes in the white, red and black livery. Looks pretty cool. It has full cargo capacity. It's essentially like a roll-on, roll-off type of situation. So it has ramp at the front, ramp at the back. So you can just, like I said, you can roll tanks up and then roll them off. It comes with four turrets, essentially unmanned turrets. Sort of 2 on the neck and then 2 on the back. So it has, decent amount of firepower, basically. Obviously it comes with the VTOLs, standard interior, so that's sort of split into 2. So you've got the main cargo section, then there's a lift at the side that takes you up, and that sort of takes you into the main sort of habitation, sort of guts of the ship. So basically you can get from there into small hab zone and then the bridge.
If it would be in our world, it could be used by the UN, for example, to reach certain areas in danger, to supply the people or to help the people there.
After that we got the military variant, which is the M2 Hercules. It has an heavy armor on 1 size 3 remote turrets at the front, which is basically just under the nose, so it's even more firepower at the front. It's basically mostly the same ship. It just, do I want the regular variant with more cargo capabilities, or do I want the military variant, which is a bit more heavily protected on a bit more guns?
It comes in different livery, so it comes in the greys. And then we've got the full-on gunship version, which is, this is does exactly as it says on the tin. I mean, this is basically the full hopped up, full firepower. Comes with 4 additional unmanned turrets, and also you lose half of the cargo space, so you still have a fair amount of space to bring stuff with you. But in that space, you'll have an option of using either the equivalent of MOABs, mother of all bombs. So you'll have 4 of those that can be stacked, like it's two either side, and they're sort of at an angle and they sort of just drop down and then through the floor. Or sort of a modular unit for sort of bomblets. So we've worked out sort of, again, a small modular unit that we can slot in. So you'll have 4 of these. So you and your buddies can run in, up the lift, run to where your sort of command station is, get in your chair, screen comes down, and then you're essentially looking through the eyes of the gun, and then you're all shooting away. So yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty hefty one for sure.
Also the gunship has the guns more focused on the bottom of the hull. Imagine it's almost 100 meters long, 70 meters wide. So it's not a dogfight ship. You have additional seats where soldiers can control the guns. That's quite nice. The interior design between the gunship and the basic version, for example, is quite different when you're in the cargo area, because you have all the new equipment for the bomb systems. There's also an additional seat in the cockpit area. The additional guns on the gunship, they changed the shape quite a bit, because it's up to, at the basic version you have S3 and S4 guns, and at the gunship version you have several S5 guns too.
So it's always interesting to work on new manufacturers, basically new to us. Obviously Chris had worked earlier in the project, and they'd worked on the Genesis Starliner, which is more of a airliner, just for, it's for carrying people, passenger airliner basically. There's already some existing art language, design language for that. In Star Citizen now, we're generally sort of trying to get things into quite different categories. So you know, okay, that's Crusader, that's Aegis, that's Anvil. In the past, we've had some crossover, and you know, we're trying to keep things quite separate where possible. And so on this, you know, there were just some key shapes that we've taken. It's literally just, you know, there's a certain profile of that Starliner that is very similar that we've sort of taken, but with the, you know, with the Starlifter, it's a different role of ship, isn't it? So we didn't want it just to be a standard military carrier. So Mike's done a good job of taking the functionality and taking those sort of initial styling cues that we wanted, and then advancing it. And you know, that's always the best part for a concept artist. It's new, it's fresh. You know, they've got a lot more freedom to define things.
As usual, I like to start with just simple thumbnail sketches, just black and white, and then doing different versions of them, selecting best solutions of the sketches, and then let's say 2 or 3, and continue with those. So I took 2 sketches into 3D, made a rough concept block out of them, and then there was a final decision between those 2. And then after you have the rough final hull idea of the overall ship and interior, you go ahead with a bit more into detail, not too much, but yeah, you start defining the shapes and how it fits with the interior. You continue with the interior and adjust the exterior and so on, till you can focus on buttons in the cockpit.
We had some concerns at some points, like, isn't that too many guns? Isn't that like too much firepower? But we've tried to balance it as much as possible, so that's why the guns that are on the gunship are not facing forward. So, like, for example, a single player, if he was just alone in his gunship, it wouldn't really make a big difference with a military ship. If you want to fly the gunship, you need to have friends or AI with it, so they can fire the guns towards the ground or toward the side. It's more an air-to-ground combat design. The guns are angled on the side, but they are more angled a bit downwards as well. So obviously it's not like real planes where real-life gunships will try to circle around the position, because those are spaceships. You don't really have to circle around, but this is still, you have to angle a bit to be sure that you can hit this way or both way at the same time.
I mean, Mike did like, I don't know, 30 or so initial sketches. And then from those probably developed another 10 and just building up. And my job is really to sort of work with Mike to basically get us to a point where we've got a couple or 3 solutions for Chris to choose from. On this occasion, it was dialed down to 2. And as Mike was saying, one definitely was more sci-fi. Both really good, like strong silhouettes, strong form language. And then it just comes down to Chris. What does he want? The version that people are seeing now is the version that Chris went with. And you know, initially I don't think we'd really sort of factored in the VTOLs, and they became a big feature of the ship. And we, you know, as the design developed, you know, would still sort of, you know, reference back to the Starliner. And we still got the key things here that we want to keep. Starliner is basically like a double wing. We haven't kept the fan, but I wanted to keep that sort of double wing with the negative space. So you see that very much like in the front shot of the vehicle. And again, it was just sort of keeping the hump of the head and the sort of slender neck, and then a little bit of a hump at the back, a little bit of a spoiler, and then that, you know, after that, it sort of tails off into its own thing. And with all these things, it's, you know, it's you're in constant development. You know, the next one we'll do, we'll advance a little more. We'll be like, okay, currently we've got these 3 things that we hang our hat on, you know, that we always use for our design. And we've got these other 2 things now that we like. That makes, you know, that becomes part of the style guide. It's always got to have these things.
I think the biggest challenge for me was the poor size of it. When you compare it to the Hawk, which was my ship I did before, it was like this size, the Hawk. And now you have the Starlifter is like this. So yeah, and then designing this in the same amount of time, with much more content, it's quite challenging. Yeah.
So obviously, well, it's not going to fly before a while, but this is, we have the dimensions. We are sure that we can fit 2 tanks inside. We can fit the specific amount of cargo units. We can check all the components inside. Will the ejection seats work? Will the player be able to walk inside without any issues? Will there be any issues in terms of atmosphere? Will there be any issues in terms of metrics? So obviously, all of this we already checked.
I'm really looking forward to see the behavior when it's flying in atmosphere, how it changes from flight mode to landing mode with the VTOLs on the side, because there are some kind of separated wings which can rotate. And when it's landing?
In a traditional sort of strict sense of what this vehicle would be imagined to be used for, yeah, it would be that. It would be softening up the enemy. You take out their defences, then you can come in, land. You know, with those large VTOLs, you can land pretty much anywhere, unload your ground forces. So you know, yeah, we're looking at you know it can hold 2 tumbrils, but the community, who knows, will probably load up 200 people. Do you know what I mean? It'll be like, we don't know what will happen, but yeah, you could have a mini army just roll out the back, and yeah, you'll have clans who will have not just 1, they'll have multiple. So yeah, just like in the promo shots we've done, you could have essentially a task force coming in and just completely taking over somewhere and just blitzing it.